This is it, man. A few more seconds to showtime.
Two different levels, I cannot relate.
The more I read, the more I learned, the more I understood, this was not a tool. This was a revolution.
Gotta let people know Bitcoin is money. It's not a commodity. It's not digital capital. It's not a digital gold. It's money. We gotta use it that way.
Family close, put in work and secure the bag and then take it back to my foes.
The Bitcoin way educates and empowers every individual on how to regain full control over their wealth, how to protect it, and how to get it right the first time, so that there's no mistakes and no anxiety in any stage of that process.
I think there are two important things that people should understand about self-custody. First of all is that it is critical. You only hold your wealth if you take 100% self-custody. In anything else, you're taking on counterparty risk. You're exposing yourself to government intervention, regulations, failed businesses, and so forth. But the second and another very fundamentally important thing about self-custody is that anybody can do it. It's a new set of skills, but it's not that complicated. You just need the right teacher to help walk you through the process to do it correctly the first time.
For once, we have an asset that you can truly own yourself, and it's critical to take ownership over this asset to maintain its power and to ensure that you are in charge of your money and your money doesn't get eaten up by inflation or any other thing that's happening around the world.
Self-custody is so important because the whole idea around Bitcoin is to move away from counterparty risk, to move away from centralization. And if you're storing your Bitcoin with counterparties, you're just delaying the real adoption of Bitcoin, where we separate money and state and have a better world. So if you really want to be a part of the change, your Bitcoin should be truly yours. It shouldn't be shared with anyone, and it should be used. You shouldn't be afraid to use your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin only will become what it is supposed to become if you really use it and know how to use it, more importantly, not just to store it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bitcoin Way Live. Tony, my man, you're in the house. Great to see you again.
Michael? Good to see you again, man. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Man, we've been on the same time zone for a few weeks now, or close to the same time zone. It's been very convenient pulling all these things together these days.
Oh yeah, man. The Eastern time zone is a very convenient luxury.
I know, man. Well, and you're also learning just how difficult it is, though, for me to schedule anything with our friends in Australia.
Well, man, this is what it is. Bitcoiners come from all parts of the world, and we're all brothers and sisters, so we accommodate, whenever we can.
Absolutely, man. Well, no, this will be a fun conversation. So we were talking, I was telling you offline, one of the stories I had pulled up is, in case anyone missed it, in all of the chaos, the United States has military operations now in Ecuador as well, of all places. Obviously, they were next on my list, after Iran. Ecuador seemed like the logical place for our military to go for some sort of a operation against a dedicated or designated terrorist organization. We'll maybe get to that, but hey, we were talking offline before we hit record, or before we started the live stream. You were asking me about my thoughts as someone who, grew up, spent the vast majority of my life as like a diehard American patriot. And I'm wondering, what was it that prompted you to ask that question? Was like, because you see, obviously we see everything going on in the world, and it's just nuts.
Well, the reason I asked you is because I grew up in American culture. I'm like, maybe, in some aspects more American than you are, because, I was surrounded by folks native to Michigan, and like these guys were pure American, like hardcore, like there was the music, the culture, the food, the jokes, all of it, right? Like from the age of 6 to about the age of, I don't know, maybe 15 or 16. My upbringing was 100% American, and I know how much Americans love their country and the sense of patriotism, that they have. And these days, with all the bad news that you keep hearing about, well, there's this awakening to the fact that, while a lot of the American people are amazing folks, the country itself may not have such a like a pristine reputation. You know what I mean? And
I wonder why.
you go down the history rabbit hole. When you start like revisiting like the wars and all the lies and the narratives and all the bullshit that people have been sold. It's a sense of betrayal, right? And considering how patriotic a lot of Americans are, when you wake up one day and you realize that, holy shit, man, like we're not the good guys. We're actually like the worst guys. And here's the proof of it. How do you react? It's like I try to put myself in your head, like how upsetting and disappointing that must be. And that's why I asked you the question. I was just curious.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was a hard pill to swallow early on when I first started to piece things together, and it was of course I would attribute it to Bitcoin. And by the way, let me just say this for anyone who's watching: if you are an American, throw your thoughts into the chat. Like, what's your perspective as an American on everything going on? If you're not an American, I would love you to weigh in on how, like, if you're willing to say where you're from and what your perspective is on what's going on. I think that would be interesting to get sort of a global view of what everyone's thinking. Yeah, it was a hard pill to swallow because I thought, we went in and rescued the world in World War I. We went in and rescued the world in World War II. We had good reasons for going into Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're liberating people and bringing democracy. And come to find out, almost none of that is actually the case. I told you that the most challenging thing for me has been I've grown very comfortable accepting that. I told you I would rather know the truth and be alone than be a part of a tribe that's delusional, which is, I think, exactly what I would say I was prior. The hardest thing for me, especially now, like, trying to teach my kids this, my oldest is getting old enough that we're kind of like, she knows I hate the government, I frame it more kindly than that. But we've got, I think, very good people who are in law enforcement, who are in the military, actively serving. And I still say actively serving because their perspective is we have an important mission to complete. They don't have the perspective of all wars are bankers' wars. They don't have the perspective of, we've largely entered any war in the last century under false pretenses. And so I think these are incredibly good people who believe that they're doing something very good, and they believe they're doing it for my benefit. And my perspective is, it's a delicate one to hold, where I want to be respectful of those people, grateful for what they believe that they're doing, but also, to the extent I can, maybe shed some light on what I believe is really going on, which is just the bankers wanting to fund their own profit, the military-industrial complex getting their piece of the pie, politicians getting greater authority, because whenever they can scare people into these wars. We see the Patriot Act. We see greater surveillance. Now with AI tools, we've got this little heated battle with Anthropic and how they're going to mass surveil Americans. And, I saw something just this morning, actually. I'll find it and pull it up here in a minute. But is the war, everyone watching these missiles going back and forth, is that a distraction as media companies are consolidated? And a very small handful of people are going to have control over what we're watching and viewing, even more so than we do today. So I think I'm sufficiently concerned about the trajectory that we're on that I'm okay sort of abandoning my blind patriotism. And my patriotism has now taken the form of, I want what was originally intended by the revolutionaries of the late 18th century, not what we've done for the last 250 years since. So that's kind of where I stand today. I don't know if you have any thoughts or comment on that.
Yeah, man, that's fair. I mean, that's fair and makes perfect sense to me. You mentioned like a key word here, like the the blind patriotism. I think this is the problem these days, is that a lot of people just assume a lot of things and, just filter other info, completely outside. And that's a dangerous place to be, because I'm sure, like, the forefathers of the United States, if they were alive today, when they'd have a stroke to see, how things, manifested from what they envisioned to what they actually have these days. And it's a hard pill to swallow. Like I mentioned the analogy like a while back. It's almost as if someone telling you, that your parents are really bad people. Like, imagine somebody telling you that your dad is a serial killer or your mom is like something, right? And it's almost impossible for you to even listen to that conversation, because it's your parents and they've been around for a long time, and this is who you look up to and you trust and you love and what have you. So there's a lot of that also that is blinding people to facts. And I think before Bitcoin, that was very hard. That's a very hard message to try to convey to folks. But ever since Bitcoin, something changed, man. Whether it's Bitcoin and whether it was during the COVID years, there was a line that was crossed, right? And then, as always, once you pass that line, nothing stays the same anymore. And I think we're seeing, the consequences of that trespassing. And I don't see this slowing down. In fact, all the craziness that's going on around the world, in my opinion, are the results of more people understanding the truth, and those who were, previously in positions to abuse it are losing power and are now desperately trying to hold on to it, almost like a rabid dog that's pinned to a corner, and like the only thing it has is to attack, right? And so all these headlines that we start reading about, I think they all fit into that narrative, right? Like, it's a loss of power and a desperate attempt to cling on to whatever works at the expense of everybody. And I think the people that are getting hurt the most, even though it's not physically for now, are the American people, because they're being lied to. You are economically being completely ravaged, and the options for you to protect yourselves are disappearing.
Right.
Yeah. How that plays out, given enough time, is anybody's guess. I hope it doesn't escalate into something really disgusting, but historically speaking, it always does, because that's the only way change actually takes place, right?
Yeah. It's what's challenging is when you're talking with people, like when I'll speak for myself. When I'm talking with other people, I have to tread very lightly, because almost anything I say sounds like I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist. Like, one thing that the powers that be have done a very good job of is convincing you that anyone that takes an alternative perspective to history, to current events, to almost anything, is just a conspiratorial nut job. They think that, the Illuminati rules the world, and, the frogs are turning gay because of the fluoride, or whatever these narratives are. And I mean, there are certainly things that I believe that are probably, or that I suspect that are pretty fringe, right? But I think you can look at. I'm not going to name specific historical events. I think people can, imagine what some of those might be. Where if you take some time, not even a lot of time, but you just analyze some of the facts, some of the video footage, some of the the narratives that were spun, and you look at it more objectively, it becomes very evident that you were lied to, that the mainstream media narrative was a complete and utter lie. And then if you have to then begin to wonder, okay, were they lying about other things? Like, if you can just wrap your head around one big quote unquote conspiracy theory and recognize it as, oh, the conspiracy theorists were actually right, this is, there's very compelling evidence. Well, then it makes it much easier for you to go back and look at, World War II. It makes you much more open-minded to considering the history of your nation's founding and what's going on today. Like I said, we've got Ecuador going on, we've got Iran going on, all at the same time. And here I pulled this up, Tony. This woman, there's a video here, but I'm just going to read what this post says. According to our breakdown, the entire system behind our media could run on Oracle infrastructure, the same Oracle that just landed federal contracts tied to Medicare and Medicaid data for 150 million Americans, AI operations for the Air Force. So basically, these CNN, CBS, HBO, Warner Brothers, Paramount are close to coming under the control of effectively one family. And Larry Ellison specifically is obviously the sort of the man behind the curtain, so to speak, at Oracle. And we've had, he's been talking with Trump, and just so many concerning things going on. When people see that sort of post, if you're not already down these rabbit holes, you don't really have a tinfoil hat on, you think, it's a bunch of crazy stuff, because you still see these as separate companies operating kind of their own channels or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got centralized control at the top, the narratives are going to be the same. Millions and millions and millions of people are going to hear the same talking points over and over and over, until any evidence to the contrary as to what might be going on is just dismissed. And I think it's a very dangerous place to be. Hey, we've got some comments here. I want to just make sure I'm addressing people as they come in. So Elaine Lowell, because everything true in the world is a conspiracy theory. And then she also said, liars lie about everything. We live in an inverted world. To know the truth, just look for the opposite. Voila. I'll tell you, Elaine, that's the conclusion I've come to. Is
well, the thing is, it's very simple to understand. The fundamental core of everything, the money itself, is a lie, right? Like the dollar itself is the lie that everything above is founded on. So if that starting point is complete rubbish, everything around it needs to always be a lie and also rubbish to support that foundation, right? So organically, that ecosystem, that's just by design how it's supposed to be. The difference is, we didn't have the tools and the capabilities to see that up until, the internet came about, and you fast forward a little longer, and now, an alternative currency that, is outside, the power grab of governments and central banks, became a real thing. And, again, they crossed the point of no return with their insane ideas. And that's what started breaking the whole mold. And of course, the overextension, overprinting, over-abusing, over. I mean, at some point, there's only so much abuse you can put out before it just explodes, right? And this is everything that we're witnessing these days is just, the results of all this stupidity. And you have to expect that, that centralized power gets worse, gets more extreme, gets more corrupt in order to remain relevant. Because again, when you're visibly seeing that you're losing control and losing power and people have options and there's nothing you can do about it, well, you're going to take your level of aggression higher and higher and higher, hoping that you get somewhere with it. I don't think we will, but I do think there's a lot of pain in the short to midterm for those that are either dismissing this whole thing as a conspiracy theory and are not doing anything to protect themselves, believing that somehow things will always work out. I don't think they will, at least not this time around.
Yeah. So how do you, so Tony, you're out at a bar having a drink with a friend, or you're, smoking a cigar at a cigar lounge. You're just out enjoying your time, and someone pulls up a chair next to you and starts talking to you. Do you keep your conversations with like the random people you meet in the world, just kind of, hey, like, where are you from? High level, how's it going? Or like, are you pretty quickly getting into Bitcoin and some of these other topics? Like, is that par for the course if you're just chatting with someone?
I used to be like this, not so much anymore. Right now, I keep it very superficial and sort of, see where they want to take the conversation. I mean, sure, sometimes I can ask, a few questions that might, prompt, a certain type of response. and then we can take it from there. And if somebody's already inclined to talk about this, I mean, you'll know right away. It's like what brings you to El Salvador, or like what brings you to, you know, X, Y, and Z, and then they'll tell you, and then based on that, you can see where you can go with this conversation and whether they're aligned with the same reasons that you are here, right? Or with the reasons that you live your life the way you do now, you know, sound money, truth, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals and what have you. And recently, you know, there's a very big uptick in people, you know, aligned in that thought process, a lot more than I thought I would find. You know, I thought it might take a little bit longer, but just during, you know, this last trip, it was a very noticeable difference from random strangers, you know, that all of a sudden they gear the conversation to test me, you know, like to see if I'm aligned with them, you know, like almost playing the same game, you know, that I'm trying to play here. And then at some point, you know, the conversation just takes off, and you realize that, you know, people are starting to, you know, ask better questions. You know, not everybody's asleep at the wheel. At least those with a lot to lose are actively looking for answers. They may not all be in Bitcoin, but they're all definitely headed in a direction that at some point will lead them to Bitcoin, because it's just a natural fit in the world that they want to live in.
Yeah, I remember on so last year when I was heading to Prague for BTC Prague. I ended up talking. I don't usually, first of all, I don't get out of the house very often. When I do, I usually just try to keep to myself. Somehow I ended up with a conversation with the person next to me on all 4 flights. And so 2 on the way to Prague and 2 on the way home. And all 4 of them, I was very fortunate. I got stuck next to interesting people who were conversational, and they had like an open-mindedness. The only reason I brought it up was because, hey, why are you going to Prague, right? Like, where are you going? Why are you going there? And so when I told them, it lent itself to a conversation about Bitcoin and why we're doing what we're doing at the Bitcoin way. And they all seem to have this like implied understanding. Yeah, my life is getting more expensive. Something is wrong. Yeah, we're being lied to. And these were like pretty normal. These weren't like Bitcoiners, right? These were relatively normal people. And I was 4 for 4 on having people who seemed awakened to something's off, you know, like something isn't right. COVID was nuts. My life is just, you know, untenable when it comes to what I'm paying for, you know, things today that 10 years ago I could afford. And so my sense is that people are seeking answers. There still seems to be a mental block, in my view, when it comes to Bitcoin. Like they've done a good job of spinning the conspiracy theorists as a bunch of crazy people. They have also done a very good job of spinning Bitcoin as this hyper volatile speculative asset. There's no backing, there's no company behind it. So why would it be worth anything? It's boiling the oceans. It's used by criminals exclusively. All of these things that the moment I say Bitcoin, I sense kind of like an eyebrow raised. Like, okay, like you seem like a normal enough guy. Feel free to tell me about it. But like Bitcoin, really? You're one of those crypto bros? It's like, no, not a crypto bro, right? Like this is a monetary revolution. And the only reason you can't see it is because you think your study of history is that the United States has always existed as the great empire, and the dollar has always been the form of money that the whole world cares about and measures in and uses. And if you really believe that history repeats itself, or maybe it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, you truly believe that, which everyone will say, then it's worth going back and looking at what historically has happened with money, with empires. And you talked about this, I think, on Monday on our live stream, was like the trajectory of empires and the cultural decay that happens and losing world reserve currency status. Like that's the path that we're on. And it's completely evident to anyone willing to dig in just a little bit, but it feels like an overwhelming truth to have to swallow.
The thing is, there's an uncomfortable truth that a lot of people are struggling with when it comes to the dollar. Right? Like, I mean, if you've always been within the United States, you've been fed, you know, a vision, a story But if you've been outside the United States, that story is a completely different reality. A lot of Americans to this day don't question how come the dollar is the global reserve currency. They just assume that, it is because it's great and everybody loves it and blah, blah, blah. That's not why the US dollar is the global reserve currency. The US dollar is the global reserve currency because if you didn't adopt it, you'd be killed, or war would be waged against you, or something really bad would happen. And so, again, like you go back in history and just revisit these events where somebody decided to say no to the dollar, and then magically, something really terrible happened to them. That's what backs up the dollar. And this is something that a lot of Americans to this day either don't know or find it very hard to accept, right? And this is why I say, like, if the dollar was such a great product, why do you have to be threatened to use it?
That's a great question.
Right? Like, if it was so wonderful, fuck, people should be like, jumping over themselves to get as much of it as possible. But it's been debased. You've been ripped off. It's lost over 98% of its value since 1971. You're overtaxed. Nothing good about it is for you. Everything good about it is for them, for the group who created it and who continue to abuse it with that money printer. And so war is a business machine. You, the people, don't matter. Your rights don't exist because, in the minds of these folks, they have the right to play God, right? So these are these uncomfortable truths and conversations that some people don't want to hear and other people don't want to accept, but that are not going anywhere. Like, you can ignore it for so long, but because it's the truth, it's going to keep coming back and back and back until you have no choice to pay attention to it. Because if you don't pay attention to it, you are going to be a casualty of that very, very naive decision. So this is how I'm trying to translate what's going on in the world, and why, when some Americans ask, how come people in the Middle East don't like Americans? I'm like, who told you that? That's not true. People in the Middle East and in other countries, generally speaking, have nothing against the American people, but they have everything against the American politics, which are not representative of the American people. Like, you're not going to war with Iran. You're not invading Ecuador. It's not you, right? But it's happening whether you like it or not. But people on the other side, well, they're living the consequences. People are dying. They're losing their businesses. Their entire lives are being, flipped inside out in very, very bad ways. Yeah. That's what people don't want. That's what people hate and are always, rejecting. Like, you can't be an aggressor forever and not expect retaliation at some point. That's just like lunacy. And I think we've gotten to the point where that lunacy is out of control, which is why, again, you have these inexplicable, crazy news headlines that, 1 minute it's here, the other minute it's there, and tomorrow it'll be somewhere else. All distractions from what I think is the fundamental root of the problem. The world is moving away from the dollar. The dollar is dying. They don't want that. So by hook or by crook, they're desperately trying to find ways to extend the relevancy of that. But in order to do this, that means the rails, the rules, the regulations, all that bullshit needs to escalate to extreme levels to force you to remain in that system.
Yes.
Knowing all too well that there is an option that they can't touch, right? So again, that's why Bitcoin takes a while to comprehend. But the legacy system, as far as I can tell, is caught between a rock and a hard place. They have to do all these insane things to remain relevant. And that, organically is the best advertisement for why Bitcoin was created. So you see, like, there's that silver lining that is almost like balancing the playing field. And, more people are just, starting to notice that. And the more they notice it, like there's a bank run on the dollar, people are leaving it. Well, then the worse the attacks from the other side to try to keep others from also leaving. And so this is what we're seeing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I want to just highlight real quick a book I read a month or two ago that I saw Simon Dixon had recommended. It's A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind. Really interesting read. And actually it touches on the reason I knew about the Libya Gaddafi stuff that we talked about on our last live stream was because of this book. It really is an incredible book and actually a pretty quick and relatively easy read. So I'd encourage anyone to check that out. I think everything you said is completely valid. I think that the more that you understand the real root cause of the interventions that we see, the money to be made by politicians, by the financial industrial complex, the military industrial complex, it really, like if you truly just say, I want to follow the money and look at what incentives exist for us to do, an operation in Iran, an operation in Ecuador, the integration of these big media companies, the fight with Anthropic on enabling potential mass surveillance of Americans on a level and in a way that has not historically been possible before AI. I think a lot of these things become very clear. Tony, I want to get to a few comments because we've got a lot of people. So one, we'll come back and revisit this conversation. But Bitcoin Badger, who I think has been on several of our spaces on X, said, Tony, is it possible to share your thoughts and differences between Panama and what he followed up and said El Salvador? Like how do you view the difference between those places in terms of like a plan B or a place to live?
Look, both countries are beautiful countries. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it comes down to a lot of it is personal preference, but there's also some logistics that are involved. Like, for example, El Salvador is a stunning country, but in terms of like maturity and development, not so much compared to a country like Panama. Like, for example, if you visit areas like El Zonte in El Salvador, where the Max Kaisers of the world are hanging out, yes, it's stunning. But if you exit a bit, it's a bit more unpolished still. Given enough time, I'm sure it's going to flourish into a beautiful city and a beautiful country, but it's not there yet. Panama, I'd say, has a 15-year advantage over it. I mean, if you come to Panama City, it almost feels like, it's I described this like the hybrid of Miami, New York, and Vegas. Beautiful, clean-cut country here, and the outdoors life section of Panama is a page out of a fairy tale. The taxation here in Panama is a territorial one, meaning if your money doesn't come from the country itself, your legal tax rate is a big fat zero. So you don't have capital gain taxes. You don't have anything unless your money comes from here. Now, there's a little caveat about this with regards to Americans and only Americans, because you guys are taxed on citizenship and not residency. So you would have to consult with a tax lawyer or someone specialized in this to see how you can navigate these waters. We can, of course, we can recommend professionals that we know have helped others in the past, but it's a bit, there's a lot more steps involved for Americans versus people from, other countries where the taxation is generally by their central hub of where they're living. Like, their tax residency is really based on where they're living the most. Like, if you're spending 6 months or more in one place, you can become a tax resident of that area. And if those incentives are better than your home country, well, then you stay, logically, right? So there's a lot of, pro-freedom, pro-innovation in Panama. The banking system is fully matured with Bitcoin. There's no central bank here, so the risks of a central bank digital currency, are pretty much zero here. There's no military, so the chances of Panama engaging in any conflict is also pretty much zero. There's a lot of that going on here, and the country itself is very pro pushing that further. You can, public services are payable in Bitcoin. There's no IMF connection. That's sadly one of the, the cons of El Salvador, that they still have an IMF connection. You don't have that here. And, the list goes on. So for anyone interested, in really diving deep into these details, you're welcome to contact us. Our Plan B team here will answer absolutely everything. But I can tell you from experience and from the influx of folks that we are onboarding here, there's a very high demand for it.
Yeah. So two comments. First of all, schedule a call with our team. We can talk to you about why we chose Panama, how the process works if you're interested. You've got the QR code up there on the screen. And while you're at it, ask about self-custody Bitcoin, ask about how we can help protect your online privacy, help you set up a privacy phone. Like we're really a full service self-sovereignty company. It's not just Bitcoin and self-custody, but again, scan the QR code, just spend 30 minutes with our team. It's free, low pressure. We'll explain to you why we do what we do. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who, if you spend that time, your life could be permanently changed. The second comment is, while that's up, I had the mayor of Panama City on the podcast. So I think it's coming out this Friday. If not, it'll be next Friday. So do me two favors for everyone who's here. Give us a like on this video if you're enjoying it. We would really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel so you can hear his perspective on why he left tech entrepreneurship, came back to Panama City, is now the mayor, what they're doing. The other comment I've made, Tony, and again, this is from afar. Like I'm not down there in Panama. I've never been to El Salvador. But one of the observations I have is that El Salvador, I agree with you, all the kind words that you had for El Salvador, for Bukele. They're doing something very special. That said, my sense, and I think Mayor Mizrachi, who's the mayor of Panama City, agreed, it hinges in El Salvador on Bukele. In Panama, there seems to be like a more organic grassroots adoption.
Correct.
From the people. The banks are, you can see your dollar balance, you can see your Bitcoin balance at the banks already. You can pay for public services in Bitcoin. It's being adopted. And one of the things he commented on is, he's like, I don't want a law around Bitcoin. We want to let people use it, see how it's used, give them the freedom to transact with it, leverage it however they see fit to better their lives. And then if we feel like we need some sort of a regulation to equip people to use it in a, more safely within the sort of the fiat rails or whatever, because I know that's just a natural phenomenon that will emerge over time, then we can talk about that. But we don't want to force people to use it. We don't want to tell people how they have to use it. And to me, that lays a foundation that a lot of countries are not going to have laid, because they want to go regulate it, protect people. This, SEC is getting involved, and we have to approve this and that. And it's like, if they just leave it alone, people are going to begin to understand why it's so much better than the alternative, and they're going to use it as money. So I think that's something to be very excited about with Panama specifically. So I'd encourage, again, subscribe to the channel so you can see my interview with him, because I thought it was very fun, very interested. He's a super cool guy, very laid back. Just kind of no nonsense. He's trying to make Panama City a better place, I believe. We had a couple more comments. So Claude 1542, the increased lunacy is a sign that the system is failing.
100%.
Yeah, just clinging to whatever power they can. Let's see. Claude also said the marlin fishing is amazing in Panama. Very
yeah,
cool.
man. There's a lot of really like wow destinations that you can see here. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take to visit, all of Panama's hidden secrets, but I reckon you're not going to do this in a month. There's a lot to see, a lot of amazing people that, are coming here, which also, accentuates the whole experience. You meet new folks, you live new adventures, you build new relationships that you never thought possible before you actually, made that step here.
Absolutely. Okay, Tony, do you want to shift topics here, or anything else you have to say on sort of the history of the world and why people need to wake up to all of this?
No, of course, man. All I can say is what I've been saying like a broken record, for the longest time, is that the world is shifting, is splitting into two, right? One that's going to be caught within that dystopian web, and another half that's going to be living, a completely different life. And that opportunity, that window, unfortunately, is closing for those who are not paying attention, or who are just simply outright dismissing and, just, walking away from something that's right in front of them. And so not every country is going psychopath. There will be options, countries like El Salvador, countries like Panama, and I'm sure many more that we're going to hear about are going to be, you know, front running all these other corrupt states in order to attract, you know, the best of the best onto their lands, so that, you know, we can move into that world of abundance. So we're already starting to see it here. And I'm sure we're just going to, this is like whatever, however bad the world gets, understand that the other side is improving by the same rate, just in the opposite direction.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys have been down in Panama for like what, a month, and you're onboarding 50 new people. Like the type of people who are looking for a Plan B residency in Panama are not just your average normie. They are going there because their eyes have been open to what's going on in the world. Our clients are obviously largely a cohort of Bitcoiners, probably very, very freedom oriented minded folks, and their families. And so over the next, you know, I don't know, 10 years, can you imagine what the Bitcoin way is going to do in terms of onboarding an incredibly talented group of people? You're going to have a place to go in Panama of people who think like you and live like you and want to live sort of independently and autonomously and sovereignly, but they want to be surrounded by people who are doing the same kind of thing. And like when you have that community, that's an incredibly powerful thing. I'm personally very jealous because I've got a mini version of that here where I live in the States with my family and a couple of close friends, but nothing on the scale that I think we're building in Panama.
And like, for full transparency, the folks that are coming here are coming from all over the world. So in case anybody was curious where these people are coming from, they're literally coming from everywhere. You know, United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, the UK, you name it. And another popular question I get, I mean, do I have to be rich to come to Panama? No, you don't. You just need to be able to sustain yourself here. And there's a budget for every lifestyle. All our clients are not, you know, ultra high net worth individuals. They're all comfortable. They're all, you know, very well aware of the realities of the world, and the fact that, you know, if they don't take a decision like this, their lives are not going to be very happy ones. And so they come here initially, you know, with, you know, that, you know, I guess you want to call it apprehension of the unknown. But we make that disappear almost instantly, because we really handhold you through the entire process and take care of all the legwork and the ugliness behind the scenes. You literally need to just pay the bill and show up. And once you do, we introduce you to a ton of other like-minded individuals that are also here for similar reasons. And before you know it, you've formed many new friendships that will probably last you a lifetime. That has been the experience of every single person we've onboarded so far, and believe me, it's that number is growing, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
Yeah. Hey, we had a question for you. Everyone in Lebanon, Turkey, etc., should be in gold and Bitcoin. Why isn't that the case? Don't people understand? And previously he'd said, why are people not FOMOing into hard money even after having lived through hyperinflation personally?
That is a question that I've asked myself a million times, and was a major reason as to why I left, because it really pissed me off to see that, you know, despite the most horrific conditions that they've experienced, so many people are just limited, you know, and like self-inflicting pain onto themselves, because either they don't want to learn, or they just think that somehow they are going to beat the system the next time. Very stupid, very foolish, very ineffective. But you fast forward, you know, to 2026, and even though it's not the majority, I know that there's a growing number of people in Lebanon, in Turkey, in Iran, a lot more now, that are paying attention to Bitcoin, that are restructuring their lives using it, and are not waiting around for the next collapse.
Yeah, I think that's it gives me hope. But I would just say that human nature is, unless you cannot feed yourself and your family, it's very easy to just be complacent and say, I'm just going to continue with the status quo. It takes real work and effort and time to study, learn, grow, seek out solutions. And most people just aren't, you know, unfortunately, they just aren't ready for that. Melly Mel BTC, man, never thought about Panama. Well, you should check it out. Again, go check out our website.
Definitely worth considering. If you have questions, reach out. We'll hop on a call, lay it all out.
I have not spoken to a single person who's been to Panama who has said anything, who's given it anything but glowing reviews. And we had Adam Hudson on a couple weeks ago.
You should post the link to the fireside chat that we had, that webinar with Adam Hudson. I think anyone who hasn't seen it yet should definitely take some time and check it out. We answered like 1 billion questions from all directions in order to really paint as accurate as a picture as possible for those that are seeking better options.
Yeah, it was it was an incredible chat. I need to find this. We've got it up somewhere. I'll try posting it in the chat here in just a bit. Tony, the other thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was the hang on, let me pull this up for you. So a study from the Bitcoin Policy Institute finds frontier AI agents prefer Bitcoin over stablecoins and other forms of money. They tested 36 models over 9,000 conversations, and almost half chose Bitcoin for their economic activity. Pretty incredible. Yeah. A digital native money that's scarce and can settle in a fraction of the time of fiat. I don't get it. We've talked a lot about AI on the show, and actually, I'm interviewing Sean Clark for the podcast later today, and I think we're going to have a very fascinating chat. Have you seen his feed lately? It's like half Bitcoin and half what he's doing with his local AI bot that he's created, and it sounds incredible.
It is incredible, and he's like he's out of control, man. Like
I know.
So he's discovered this rabbit hole, and it's like a never-ending addiction now.
Yeah, here's I'm so nervous about the privacy implications of it all, right? Like I know I could give an AI bot access to certain tools, files, that sort of thing. And what I'm going to start with is, very benign applications. So for example, I bought a 3D printer this year, and I have not had time to dig in on, like using a CAD application and building my own stuff. I'm going to see if I can give a local AI model access to, design something that I want, where I just have to describe it. Can it do that sort of thing? I would love for it to do, like I've thought about maybe setting up a bank account and a Bitcoin wallet with just like a little bit of cash, a few sats. Hey, order pizza for me, like that kind of thing, where it's like they don't have access to drain my Bitcoin wallet or anything. If they lost a handful of sats, it's not a big deal. But can they just do little things to make my life a little bit easier? And then I'm going to proceed with extreme caution, because this is where it just concerns me that there are people who are not thinking through that, and they're going to be pinging 1 million models all connected online with tons of sensitive data, access to their files. And I do not trust the people, even open source. I just don't trust who's on the other side of the models that are being leveraged and, the API calls that are being made when you're using something like this. So I'll probably consult with you a little bit, Tony, before I dig too deep into it. But in the meantime, if I can find these relatively benign applications for AI, I want to experiment. But the fact that anyway, I digress. The fact that they're choosing Bitcoin is completely unsurprising to me. However, I'm curious, what do you think the implications are of this? Like, are people going to spin up AI tools that are revenue sources for them, where the AI gets paid in Bitcoin for services it renders? So like if you have a Mac Mini, you train your AI bot to do certain tasks, people can then come and pay your AI bot. It's basically your own business to do things for them, and then they get paid in sats. That increases demand from both the payer of the services, the consumer of the services, as well as the bot rendering the services. Like, what's this world that you think is unfolding before us?
Man, when I first stumbled upon Bitcoin, I thought like, holy shit, like this is like the 9th wonder of the world. This is it, man. Like, we're so blessed to be living in something so huge. And then shortly thereafter, AI comes about, and you're like, wait a minute. You've got these two explosive, world-changing things that now exist simultaneously. What on earth are we walking into? AI for me is one of the most exciting, revolutions we have ever seen. There's Bitcoin on one side, but the AI, if you've ever, wished you had a little genie that you can rub and, ask him anything and have all your wishes come true, this is AI today. It's gotten to a point of such insane capabilities, but you need to know how to master it and how to keep it under control, something that most people who are dabbling in it are not doing, because they're so excited by the cool factor that they're just using it as a toy. And it won't be long before you start seeing and reading about these horror stories where their bank accounts have been drained, the credit cards have been shopping all over the place on their own, and all that craziness because they didn't account for the fundamentals. This is still at the end of the day technology. Your network needs to be secured, your firewalls need to be in place, the AI agents need to be contained. It's not a free willy, do whatever the hell you want, Wild West type of attitude that you should be taking towards this. But once you get it under control and you understand what it can provide you, the only limitation is your creativity. So from where I'm standing, I already have a million ideas to how we're going to use this transformative technology to provide a lot of, hopefully life-changing solutions to the world. And there's millions like us, probably even better than us and more advanced and implicated in this space than we are, that are also going to be doing the same thing. AI and Bitcoin cannot be contained, right? The only containment exists in the heads and worlds of those that believe it can be contained. With regards to Bitcoin, if you believe that you belong in a cage, then keep using TradFi services, using Bitcoin as wrappers and custodied garbage. That is the cage you are putting yourself in. There's no cage around Bitcoin. Same thing exists with AI. So when I hear politicians and governments babbling that how they're going to regulate and censor and control, I laugh. It's like, yeah, good luck doing this, man. This is open source code, self-learning, high-level intelligence that you cannot contain, and it's available to everyone. So what that turns into down the line, man, God knows. But it's going to be something really, really, really crazy. And the possibilities, because of these two revolutionary pieces of tech, are endless and limitless. And I'm just mesmerized by, first of all, what we can do with it right now in its current form. But where I'm really excited is what you keep making fun of, is when you take all of this tech and you implement it in human-like bots that walk, talk, think, gesture, laugh, smile, just like a human being. And you won't be able to know the difference unless, maybe there's some very specific telltale signs. But given enough time, I assure you, it's going to be almost impossible to know the difference. And people born in this world will not know the difference. In fact, there will come a point in time where whatever humans are still around living in this new world will probably prefer more humanoid interaction than actual human ones, because humans come with a lot of flaws and AI doesn't, or at least much less, right? And you can customize them and adapt them, and they adapt to you. They're smarter than you. They're always like 10 steps ahead of you in what have you, and you can I guess trust them given enough give and take, right? Because again, they're learning algorithms that are tailored to the person who's interacting with them. So too many things to unpack, man. But like, if you take it just like superficially, that world is like a nuclear superpower that is now been unleashed and made available to 8.3 billion people. So the days of centralization and abuse and all that fucking garbage that we're still having to deal with now, at some point will disappear. It will get worse before it disappears. But as long as there's more good in this world than evil, with all the tools that are available, we are headed towards a very promising world. At least that's the way I see it, which is why I remain very hopeful on that orange future. Because in my head, I just know there's no way to avoid it. It's just, if you want to live in it now, there's, there's certain steps that you have to take, manual work to get there. But fast forward 50, 100 years, it'll become as, commonplace as high-speed internet. No one will talk about it.
I agree with you. There's no stopping this train, the AI train specifically. Call me old fashioned. I'm something of a monogamist, and to the extent that I want to interact with other people, I'd rather it be people and not, a piece of metal with, human skin wrapped over it. But I do agree with you. I think there's incredible power to it. I mean, honestly, the incentive for me to start, like I ordered a Mac Mini. I'm going to start playing with this. I'm going to move very slowly because I want to be cautious of the privacy, security implications, protect my family, my finances, obviously. But I was late to Bitcoin because I wasn't paying attention, right? Like I'd heard of Bitcoin. I probably heard of Bitcoin in 2013 or 14 for the first time, who knows? And didn't cross my mind to do anything about it. And it wasn't until 2022 that I woke up and said, okay, I need to start studying this. And I didn't even understand why. It wasn't like I had a problem to solve. I just felt like maybe there's like an investment opportunity or something. I don't want to look back and say, oh man, I missed that first wave of real utility in AI in 2025, 2026. To me, that's kind of where it's gone mainstream from just ChatGPT I've been using for, or ChatGPT I started using a couple of years ago or whenever it came out. I've since moved on to better, more privacy oriented tools, but I don't want to look back 5 or 10 years from now and say, oh, I was a part of the late majority of adopters because I was just too lazy to start figuring it out. I want to bring some knowledge to my life, a new skill set, and some efficiency where I can get comfortable with it. To me, I'm a little less excited about the droids that you reference. But
look, I mean, as exciting as it is, there is a very, hard reality about it as well. AI is going to obliterate a lot of people's jobs. Okay, that is an undeniable fact. It is coming to take over most low-hanging fruit jobs, unfortunately. And those that are in positions to be affected by this, and at some point everybody will, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, you name it, at some point the AIs will obsolete you. And so we need to be ahead of the game, right? So that it's going to force us to upgrade and level up and increase our awareness and everything about us as human beings. Otherwise, you're just going to be rendered irrelevant. And if you're not in a position to sustain yourself financially, this is where you're going to find yourself stuck in that dystopian world of UBIs, central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, where you literally have zero decision power over your own existence. Again, reference to the movie I keep alluding to, go watch Elysium if you haven't seen it yet. It's with Matt Damon. It's a fantastic movie. But I genuinely believe we are headed towards a world very similar to this. And the AI reality seals it for me as confirmation that there's just no way we don't head to some version of this. So as exciting as it is, it's not like, okay, let's wait around, it's going to be Christmas soon. No. You need to do your part in order not to get obliterated by this fascinating piece of tech that is now not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's again part of the reason I'm looking into this. Claude 1542 said Matt Hill from Start9 Labs did a podcast on AI, and apparently they're launching their own LLM on their Start9 server update.
Yes,
That's awesome. And Matt's a guy I know personally, and imagine it'll be fully open source, and I trust the sort of work that they do, that it will be conscious of privacy, but I think they're going to make it such that you don't have to trust them.
Of course, just keep in mind that self-hosting, is the way to go, but it's something that, first of all, requires a substantial budget if you're going to do it properly, and especially if you want to scale it, because all that super intelligence requires horsepower. So I mean, you can use it on a small computer, but you'll be waiting half an hour every time you give it a prompt. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So expect yourself to invest in this infrastructure and to set it up properly. You need to do it according to the highest and strictest levels of cybersecurity, and before you just like blindly unleash hell upon yourself.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this. I'm looking at sovereign hybrid compute, which is I had Hodl Tarantula on the podcast a week or two ago, and it's basically like an off-grid. So if you want to leave Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, any of these services that you use for file sharing, hosting, any of that sort of thing, they're offering an alternative where you can sort of customize how you use it. So you could throw an LLM model up there. It's local in the sense that you're the only one with access to it, but it's actually hosted by them. And it gives you redundancy, all of the things that you want from like an Amazon Web Services, but you get to do it using, stranded energy that they're powering it with, still the built-in redundancy. So that way, when you see what was it, Tony? Like Zoom and I don't know, 50 major applications went down because of an Amazon outage. Well, you're not reliant on that anymore. So that's something I'm looking at. And one way that I think I might incorporate this once I kind of build up my skills and understanding. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. I think the point I'm making here is I think everyone should start dabbling with this. You should just be incredibly cautious now, because most of the people behind most of the LLMs are not people that you want to be in bed with. And so what you share with them, how you share it, what access you give, even a local model information, what access of information you give, even a local model, is, I think, of critical importance. You really need to be thoughtful about that. So, Tony, we're about at time here, so let's head for home. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you were hoping to chat about?
No, man, I think we covered it all. I just, very strongly believe and remain bullish on a decentralized future. Bitcoin is a must, or rather a prerequisite, and so is, an increased awareness about AI, how to use it, and not just, just glancing over it as the next, cool kid on the block. This is real. This is, very serious stuff, and people can win at this. They don't have to be fearful of what's coming, but in order to be in that position of confidence, you need to do the work, right? You need to understand that there are options that are not controlled or in positions of abuse anymore by people. Bitcoin is the money. AI is that genie that is at your disposal right now.
Well said. Last comment here from Kid Cuddy 809. Great content. Always enjoy watching you guys. Keep it up. Really appreciate that. Hey, do us a favor. If you're enjoying it, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we've got the mayor of Panama City. I think Friday, my conversation with him will be out. So you're not going to want to miss that.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Like I said, just a really cool guy. Very interesting work that he's doing down there that I think is going to catch a lot of people's attention. So, Tony, thank you so much for being here as always. I look forward again to Friday. We'll be back, everyone, same time, same place. Hope to have you. Keep the chat active. We really appreciate the questions, the comments, everything, and you being here. And we'll talk with you all soon.
Thanks, guys. Catch you on the next one.
Cheers, Tony.